Now we are.
We are. We actually, and then my phone starts ringing. So we are live, man. I'm Brady. Of course, this is Mike, and this is the opportunity we take every week to interact with you guys, the fans of the channel and everything, and just help answer some questions and try to, well, answer some questions the best we can. See if we can diagnose some stuff off of a couple sentences.
Yep.
First of all, I would like to say thank everyone for all the orders. You know, we've been working really hard on trying to get our software for the Bobcats going. So we got the Bobcats interfaces, the laptops. Pretty much since last Tuesday, we kind of announced we had it. We didn't put it on the internet, you know, just basically people contacted me. We completely sold out of everything I had so far, but I've already placed new orders this morning. So hopefully within about another week and a half, we'll be back up shipping again. I think most all the orders going out the 30th, April 30th. Then after that, we'll have more orders going out after that. So I want to thank everybody for the orders on that. And if you have any questions, as far as the software goes, I pinned my email address at the top of the chat there. So just shoot me an email and we can shoot you over a quote that tells you everything that we have as far as that goes. But let's just get right back into it, Mike. It looks like we got a lot of
questions already. You ready?
Yeah, shoot.
Okay, I rebuilt one of my 773 tilt cylinders on my bucket. It won't raise the bucket. I have cracked the lines to bleed them 3 to 4 times at the 4 hoses in the cylinder. It still won't move. More bleeding, or should I look for another location to bleed? I've been doing one side at a time. It seems like the air is going from one side to the other.
Do you have drive and lift? That's odd. Those systems bleed themselves. You don't have to bleed anything. Once you do that and you start the machine up, it just bleeds itself. So I think you got something else going on. So you released lift and tilt, pushed operate button. Will it drive, and do you have lift? Sounds like something weird's going on here. You rebuilt
a tilt cylinder.
Oh, just one of them. It won't raise the bucket. So you rebuilt a tilt cylinder so it won't tilt it back. I've cracked the lines. I'm just wondering if something happened when you rebuilt the cylinder. You don't think the piston came off or a damaged seal or something like that, do you, when you were putting it together? Because it's self-bleeding. You shouldn't have to bleed any hoses or crack any lines. I'm not sure what's going on with that one.
Oh, here we are. Doosan D34 spun rod bearing. What was causing it to not run right? Low oil pressure, knock sensor messing with fuel timing. You said it would run but kept dying. Should there have been a code? That's William Skuda.
Is he always asking about that the D34 we did? Should it have thrown a code? Yes.
Yeah.
Do they always? No, that's the problem. We don't always get those low oil pressure, but you get, and I don't know why. It wasn't a knock sensor. So what happens is, majority of the time I see a D34 spin a rod bearing is whether, number one, it's low on oil, and number two, they're working on really steep slopes. Everyone I've been out to has been on a very steep slope, very high angle of attack. But, you know, I think they hold 4812, almost 13 quarts of oil. You know, you're a few quarts low and you're working on that type of angle with a engine that's in there sideways as opposed to inline. You got a better chance of sucking air as far as that goes. So the reason that spun a rod bearing was due to the oil pressure. But so yeah, I wouldn't have had anything to do with the knock sensor or timing or anything. I said it would run, but it kept dying. Should there have been a code? Yeah. So the problem is, like, when it was cold, we could get it to start and run for a little bit. And we got another one out here doing the exact same thing. It spun a bearing. It'll run for a second until it gets hot, and then it just seizes. It starts to seize on the crank, and then it can't. You know, then we just run out of horsepower. And we can't turn the engine over. So that's kind of how that that one worked. And the other one we've got outside, the D34, is doing the exact same thing. We can run it for just a few seconds. It'll die, and then we can't start it again. But if we let it cool down, we can start it and drive it. So we may try to drive that one in the shop, but it's so far gone, it doesn't matter at this point.
I have an S175, and the bucket will only raise a foot, and the tilt only works when the bucket is empty. The auxiliary doesn't work at all. It drives fine. What should I test first? Low on oil.
S175.
The bucket will only raise a foot, and the tilt only works when the bucket is empty. The auxiliary doesn't work at all.
Okay. The fact that the auxiliary doesn't work at all makes me think maybe the auxiliary is stuck in one direction, because that's kind of how it works. When the auxiliary is deadheaded and we're going over relief, usually you can't really raise the bucket. It'll raise a little bit. It'll go down fine, but it won't raise. Or maybe that's backwards. Maybe it would raise but not go down.
Maybe.
So a couple things come to mind here. Is the auxiliary stuck? One way to test that is you're going to have to loop the auxiliary hoses on the front of the machine. You're going to have to build a hose or something and just and connect your quick couplers together and just run a loop in there. Does it feel like the engine has a load on it at all? Because if the auxiliaries were stuck on, you would hear a load on the engine. But if you don't, this sounds like a pressure issue to me. Now that I think about it, we may just have low system pressure altogether. We may not be building hydraulic pressure.
No load, he says.
No load. So what I think, Robert, is, well, what I would do is I'd check pressure. Okay. I know I keep thinking of different ways of going about this. So when you're trying to lift, only lifts a foot, does the engine bog like it's going over relief as you're trying to lift? But it'll only tilt when there's nothing in it, only when it's bucket. So I think you've got low system pressure. You may be losing a gear pump on that. And one way to check, well, is to, again, use a gauge on one of the auxiliary ports, and we deadhead into a gauge and see if we can build system pressure. You should be able to build, 3,000, 3,200 PSI on that system. If you can't build pressure, then more than likely you're losing your gear pump, or you've lost your gear pump, or you could have a main relief problem. You could try to go in there and crank your main relief down, but it's very, very rare their main relief goes bad. I'm just saying that's just if you just run out of options and you want to try cranking them, because when you replace your gear pump, you should replace your main relief as well. So if you want to crank that down, but if you mess with your main relief, you're going to have to put a gauge on one of those auxiliary ports and make sure you set the pressure correctly when you do replace your gear pump. So right now I'm leaning toward a gear pump. I would check system pressure.
Good evening, new viewer. Thanks for your channel. I have a T190 power Bob-tach, creeps shut when switching buckets. With bucket off, the plate tips to the ground overnight. Any suggestions?
You forgot Mr. Duck Guy.
I know, he's got one right here. I'm waiting for it.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right. So, all right, T190 power Bob-tach latch. He says power bucket latch.
His power Bob-tach creeps shut when switching buckets, and the Bob-tach tips to the ground overnight.
The bucket plate tips to the ground overnight. So the power Bob-tach is designed to have pressure in the down position. So that's not uncommon. We have even new machines that will act like that. When you release the levers and you're driving around to go to get your other bucket, they'll creep down. And the reason that is because when you lock them, we want to have some type of residual back pressure on those to keep them in the locked position. It's kind of a safety issue. So that's kind of normal. We don't always see that, but it is kind of normal operation. A lot of times they will hold themselves up in the up position, but I don't think anything's wrong that they creep down, because I've got a brand new T86 that I went out on. It was kind of the same thing, but the T86 was brand new and it was kind of drifting fast. The problem is if you get air in those Bob-tach cylinders, it's really hard to bleed the air out of those cylinders. You just have to keep going in and out, in and out, in and out. So if you change the lines or the cylinder or something, maybe it's just air. But again, the system is designed to keep residual pressure on those tatches in the down position, especially when you're operating like the lift or the tilt. That's when it sends pressure into that valve. As far as your tilting, it just that more than likely that's one of your cylinders, and the fact that it's doing it overnight with just no load on it. I mean, if it does it overnight, I wouldn't really worry about it. What does Bobcat give us? Like an inch every 10 minutes or something?
I only replace them when they're leaking.
Yeah, or maybe they give us an inch an hour or something like that. But more than likely in this scenario, it is going to be one of the tilt cylinders need to be repacked. Which one? There is a way to test it to see which one it is by taking off and capping lines and stuff, and it's kind of a process. But generally, we like to just reseal both tilt cylinders when that's happening. So that's what I would be looking into.
You good?
Yep, go ahead.
Took my name now.
I'm sorry, man.
Rick went to use his Bobcat 763 to move an engine, and a duck left him a present in the seat. Did you eat that one?
That's one for the table.
Matt Smith from Alaska lucked out on the ACS controller, fixed his lift and tilt problem, calibrated my actuators. I'm good to go. Nice. That's awesome, dude.
Good deal, man. I'm glad it worked for you. Yeah, sometimes those softwares are so far apart that they won't communicate. But yeah, it sounds like you just run a calibration and it's good to go.
Dave Chug says we just worked on his tool cat recently.
Oh yeah.
The AC, now that summer's not blowing real cold, what would you recommend? Can I try recharging it on my own?
You could, if you want to buy one of those little cans at
Walmart,
the auto parts store, or whatever, and hook into it. Yeah. Because it'll have the gauge on it, David. And yeah, just plug it in and see if you have any pressure on the system at all. And if it does, you could try to put some in it and see if it lasts you a little while. But if it has pressure in the system, you plug it in and that little gauge comes up into the green, I think is what they are. They're actually color coded. And if it comes in the green, so you've got pressure, which you need about 25 to 30 PSI. And
you've probably got like an electrical issue.
Yeah, on the low side. Just make sure that if you have 25 to 30 PSI, your compressor should engage. If it's not engaging, then we probably got an electrical, pressure switch or something like that going on. So the first thing you have to do is put gauges on it and see if we have any pressure on the low side or the high side. They should be balanced around 25, 30 PSI.
Ryan wants to know if we have a remote start tool to show that you've built.
I put them back there on the shelf. The cables and stuff would have to. So basically what we do is it looks like it's not a remote start tool. It's actually a communication you to release the brakes and the auxiliaries and stuff like that and start from the back. That's a very, very expensive device, and nobody has anything aftermarket. What we built was a communication device that we can talk through the CAN network, and we built our own cable to plug into our diagnostic port. And then we run, like I said, like an OBD2. We have to have an open port, and then we have to put the J2534, I think, drivers on your laptop or one of our computers, and that allows you to communicate with the Bobcat machine. So,
talking about this one?
Well, that's just the cable. I put
where back.
I think it's on that shelf, yeah, with all the rags and stuff. I think I put all the communication stuff back there, the open ports. I think I put them back there. As far as the engine side, the UVIM, I've already shipped. Every one I've had are already shipped out, and they're actually coming tomorrow. So I'll have the UVIMs tomorrow, and all those are shipping out as well. So I don't know if I'll have one for next week or not, but if you're familiar with the Bobcat UVIM and the RSTs, we're just using different components. We're still using a UVIM. It's just the Doosan style that's a lot cheaper but works just as good as the original UVIM.
I found it.
So I think he's got one here. So this is an example of our cord that plugs into the engine side, because this is an engine diagnostic port. I got the big round one that goes to the machine, but yeah, we're just using open port devices like this, and then we plug in like an OBD2 connector, and then we can plug into the
Engine analyzer.
Yeah, this would be engine. So this would go to the UVIM. We still got an OBD diagnostic plug that's going to the UVIM. We just have to convert it over to a cable, but this actual device will go to the big round diagnostic port. So maybe that kind of gives you an idea of what we got going on. But then you need drivers and stuff like that to make everything work. So that was a good question. Thanks for asking. All right, Mike, I don't know what I'm going to do without you. Mike keeps up with the chat. I have no idea where we're at. So, let's see. ACS. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that was Ryan asking. Checking in. Good to see everybody. Oh, Dan is back. Dan is the next best technician I've ever talked to in my life.
Whoa.
Thanks for being here. Oh, okay. All right, Mike. Okay, it's yeah. So
You don't have to
you
flatter
and Mike
me.
are like neck and man, I better shut up before I get myself in trouble. You both are great technicians. So David also asked, which Bobcat Mini in the 10,000 range would you recommend, model year, etc.? I like the R series. Well, in the 10,000 range, yeah, as long as you got a 4-cylinder, which all the 10,000 pound ones are. So you're going to be 55-ish, 50, 55. Somewhere in there. And really the years, I don't know, anything 2016 and up. The Doosan
ones are good.
Yeah, the Doosan motors do really, really, really good in the excavators. I mean, we rarely have any issues with those engines in the excavators. Yeah, so again, trying to keep the bias out of it, but I would definitely get a Bobcat over
Not
anything
a Kubota.
else. Yeah, not a Kubota. Enclosed cab,
Yeah.
And if you get an R2, they're really nice with the 7-inch touchscreen display and all.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would want to run if I were to get one. I know we're getting up there in price once we go to R2, but really the R series were really, really good. The R2s were still having some communication, electrical issues, just little bugs and stuff. But the R series, just a little bit earlier excavators were really good, really good. And then he had I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Did a teardown of the drive motor and had a piston fall out of the rotator group. Is that a problem? The drive motor was not functioning. No drive power. Could that cause this?
Piston fall out of the rotator. Did it fall out when you took it apart?
Or was it just out?
Yeah, did it fall out before? The piston shouldn't fall out unless you take the snap ring off either side of the rotator group. So I don't know how the piston fell out unless something was broke, because you have to pull that ring off either side to get that to come out. So that could definitely be a problem. Something was broke. It can't just come out. That's interesting.
The guy that sold me this machine said to run. What does he have, a 770? Said to run. Yeah.
So
John
Matt,
Deere oil in the Kubota motor.
Yeah, but he wants the software to hook up to program.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can do all the programming and everything through our thing. So again, I pinned my email at the top of the screen there. You'll just have to shoot me an email. And like I said, we just sold out. I just placed another order, but hopefully within a week and a half, 2 weeks, we'll be back shipping out again.
John Deere oil in the Kubota motor. What brand should I run? We do Shell Rotella 1030. That's a good one. I like that one.
I really like the 1030 in these engines. We run the T5.
Especially in Alaska.
Yeah. Well, actually in Alaska. So when we get below 10 degrees here, I go with the 040 full synthetic Valvoline. 1030 works good to about below 20. But once we get below 10, we're not getting oil up to the turbo fast enough. We're lagging. We're having slower starts. But if you go full synthetic 040 in the wintertime, that's what some of our guys run up here, and it helps a lot, especially at higher altitudes. You know, we're fighting cold and altitude out here, and that 10 or the 040 helps out a lot. But we run 1030 year round T5 semi-synthetic Rotella.
S850, that's what it was. Correct.
What's that?
Matt's machine is an 850 with the big Kubota. Okay, anyway. Just got a S185 and wanted to change all the fluids and filters. I ordered the 1,000-hour service kit from Bobcat, but is it worth buying all Bobcat fluids or OTC? You could. We use like I said, we use Shell oil and everything. We don't use Bobcat OEM oil. And
yeah, on the older S185, you know, I don't know. It seems like our hydraulic system's got a little more sensitive, but yeah, engine oil, man, everyone's got their own preference. Those old Kubota engines will just run on anything.
Yeah.
We really like the 10W30. It just works very well
this
for
one
our
back
climate.
here runs on vegetable oil.
That thing will never stop. And on the hydraulic, you know, an ISO or an AW46 is just fine. You don't have to get the hydraulic oil stuff for that. The Bobcat stuff, I guess, especially for the 185. I mean, I hate to say that, but a good AW46 is fine for that machine. And just a 10W30 or even a 1540. Again, it depends on your climate.
Yep.
If you're more on the cold side, stick with 1030. You know, you're in Texas, Florida, something like that.
15.
Yeah, use 1540.
How do you guys usually move around completely dead machines around the yard? So when I worked at the dealer, we would use just the biggest Bobcat we had sitting around. We usually had an S850. That would be good. That one was good enough to move everything except like anything T770 and over track wise. Had a hard time.
Yeah.
The S850.
We just use whatever we have on the
yeah.
yard. I mean,
this thing right here, this thing will pick up that service truck right there and move it with no problem. So
that thing will pick up a pallet of.
That thing can barely pick up a
pillows.
A pallet of pillows before it starts tilting over.
But good Lord, she looks good back there, doesn't she?
I guess so.
Yeah, just the biggest machine that we have. If we can't move it,
drag it, push it, work on it outside. We don't care.
Yeah, we change our rate over to the field rate and just work on it right outside the shop.
But then over at the other dealer, there was a big old forklift, correct?
Yeah, we had a big forklift at our dealer. We could pick up about anything off trailers and stuff. But look up, it's called Dead Sled. Have you heard of that? It's a sled that you hook like a hitch to another machine. You slide it up underneath the skid steers, and it's got a hydraulic ram on it that lifts the skid steer up like a pallet jack. And it's got big steel wheels on it, and you can just move it around like that. It's called a dead sled, but yeah, most everything, if we can't get it in the shop, we just fix it right outside.
Okay, so he says, you say Shuda? Is that how you say it? Because it has a silent C.
Okay.
Do you have a list of salvage yards for used parts for the older Bobcats? Say 2005 and below?
So there is quite a few across the country. I can't remember all their names, but so for me, being in my local area, I got a great salvage yard called Utah Track and Weld. And look them up. And the thing is, they don't have everything on their yard, but they have connections to every boneyard in the country. So they've never not pulled through for me. You know, it might take a few days to get it shipped in or whatever, or they, wherever they get it from, but they seem to always find the part I need. So if you can't find one, I'd reach out to Austin at Utah Track and Weld, and they can find about anything.
So how does that work? Can you bring a service truck in there and just pull
motors? No, they pull everything for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you just tell them what you need from what machine.
You tell them what part number you need. So let's say that you got a Bobcat. You tell them what part number it is. Let's say you got an S185 or whatever the case may be. Well, that part number will cross over with probably 10 different machines, and they'll search their whole database throughout the country with all those model numbers and see if they can find that part for you.
That's cool.
Yep. So that's who I would go with.
Rick would have killed the duck if he knew which one did it.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's Jake. Jake did his injectors, and he got it to fire, power up, idle up. He says it only idles for about 30 seconds and dies quick, not like a fuel loss, but like electrical. That's what he called me.
So if it shuts off, like you turn the key off, it should be coding. So see what do you not have a code on that, Jake?
I think he said there was a code. I don't remember what code. Can you type in the code, Jake, if you're still here? The code that you got, and then we can look it up and see. I remember you told me one, but I think it was a rail pressure code that he had or something. Anyway, Rick is on an M610 budget.
M610. So. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a shopping cart.
I hide from them things.
Yes. So Dave Chug wanted the recommendation on the Bobcat. So that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. 50, 55.
Yeah. T595 with the Doosan has a blown drive hose. Can I cap that side of the pump and run machine so it releases the brakes and push with my other machine?
Wait, that's a good question.
I don't know.
That's a T595. Can I cap that side of the pump?
So you can turn it on.
Well, you'd have to cap both sides of the pump, because if you turn it on through like if you have one hose still hooked to your motor, you've got charge pressure in there.
It's
so
gonna,
so it's still gonna
shoot it out.
Yeah, it's gonna charge. You're gonna have pressure in the pump, so you'd have to take both lines off. I'm trying to think of a reason it wouldn't work, because I've never tried it, but I think
interesting. Maybe
I think it would work.
But then I guess you would have to.
I'm trying to think.
You would have to uncap the drive motor, so it's not.
Yeah, you're still gonna have oil coming out, because even we're gonna have residual pressure in the case drain line, and it'll probably go path of least resistance and maybe come out the.
Well, and you want to uncap, so you're not trying to move it, and with the caps on.
Yeah, he's talking about that's why I read it. He's talking about just capping the pump.
Correct.
Yeah, leave the motor uncapped.
Yeah.
I think it'll work.
You can just
you start it up and release the brakes.
Yep.
I don't see why it won't work. I'll think about it though. I've just never tried it.
Yeah.
But that seems very logical. I've always just done the hose where it sits.
Yep.
I've done, gosh, I can't tell you how many of those I've done. And some of them you don't even have to pull the track off. You can just go in with a long crow's foot from the side and go in and take the hose off from inside the machine without pulling the track and the cover for the motor.
Dave wants to build an electrical adapter for his skid steer so he can run the electric over hydraulic between my tool and the tool cat and the skid. 7-pin to 14.
No, there's no issue building the 7-pin. So he wants the electrical adapter for skid so he can run electric over hydraulic.
So he can run between the tool cat and a skid steer. He wants to switch from his.
Oh, because I think the problem is he has a he's got a cat skid steer now.
Oh.
Am I thinking of that right? So when you say skid steer, you want to be able to work both Bobcat and your cat, right? So the thing about the 5600, whatever attachment you're using is going to have a remote ACD on it, an RACD, and we use a digital communication with the Bobcat. So I'm not sure what attachment you have, but David, you got my number. We can talk about that a little further, see exactly what you want to do. But one thing that to look in, I mean, there's several adapters out there. Skid Steer Genius is one of them.
Oh yeah.
That we can hook to the 14. You want to go 7 to 14.
Yep, because the toolcat has 7.
Right. So the attachment has 14 pin. I
don't know. It's not. Maybe his attachment has 14, or maybe this other skid steer has 14.
If a skid steer is a cat, it's going to have a 14 pin, and it's all analog. So if you've got a digital Bobcat attachment, we would have to use a Skid Steer Genius or something to convert that 14-pin analog signal to a digital signal. But yeah, you've got my number. Give me a call, and we can clarify that.
Justin Jose is here.
All right.
He's not a part-timer.
Wait, was he here last week?
I think so. Were you here last week, part-timer?
Part-timer.
Um,
Everything's great. Thanks for
Yep.
checking in, Justin.
Yes, sir. I had a roller fall out of the piston in the rotating group. Is it the rollers that wear down or the pistons or both?
Nothing should something happened. We probably lost charge pressure or something like that.
It should always be lubricated.
Yeah, and it should always be under pressure to keep the pistons running on the cam. The outside cam ring the piston should always have at least charge pressure pushing it against that cam ring. And if not, that usually causes an issue. So let's say we might have had a bad brake pack or something like that. And I recognize that name too. He's been a subscriber for a really long time, man. I think on his channel, that's where I learned how to use before anybody even knew how to put shackles in the damn hooks for the truck or hitches on our hook. Trailer hitches or trailer hooks, chains to the hitches on the new trucks. He was using the shackles. I think he has a video on that. But anyways, yeah, thanks, man. He knows what I'm talking about. Had a roller fall of the piston in the rotating group. Is the rollers that wear down or the pistons?
I guess
I'm thinking it's
the roller rolls on the cam and then the piston would wear down on the side.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
If you got contamination, everything's going to wear out.
It could have been a piece of trash or something in there, but
in a perfect world, nothing should wear out. It's always lubricated.
Right. So why it happens, I don't know. I'd have to kind of see it and kind of do a failure analysis on the damage, try to find out where it started and stuff like that. It's hard to say, you know, was it a charge pressure issue? Was it a brake pack issue? That piece of metal got in there? Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a good question. It's hard to say without seeing it.
Here, I'm going to skip down really fast, okay?
Okay.
Easy. Let me just get this really fast. Here's this code.
157-10, I think,
rail pressure, isn't it?
Control fault, though, yeah.
E
So it's not low rail pressure; it's a control fault.
157-10 Bobcat code
and
fuel rail pressure fault.
Yeah, it's a rail pressure fault, and it's usually accompanied by another code. I'd be surprised if there wasn't two. I think the 2899.
And then he said the throttle secondary sensor requires calibration. That's the foot pedal.
Yeah, and I can tell you how to calibrate that. Yeah. That's if someone ever did an update on the controllers, you have to recalibrate that sensor. So maybe someone just didn't recalibrate it. But
Justin Jose currently working on a T595. Arms will not lift with load. Just finished making hoses to check our flow at aux coupler. Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Flow and pressure.
Yeah, pressure is really all I'm ever concerned about at that point. If I'm ever concerned about flow, usually if you can make pressure, you're going to create flow. You know, you just got to have a gauge in there and a way to deadhead that auxiliary pressure into a gauge. But let me know how it turns out.
The fix. Thank you so much for the $10 donation. You're awesome, dude. Piston fell out after removing the rotator group from the drive motor. No snap ring removed. Just fell out on its own.
Yeah, something's definitely wrong. Yep. That's definitely a problem.
Crap just got expensive.
Well, thanks for the donation, man. We really appreciate that. That's what covers our
he texted me
monsters and such as that while we do these things.
157-03.
Yeah, 03. So we've got a supply, not a more than likely we've got a supply issue for who.
That's Jake.
Yeah, Jake. So he just replaced injectors. We had a couple bad injectors, low rail pressure, and now he's getting some. So when you got 10 and 3 together, that's usually a buildup, an actual IMV or rail pressure control fault, not necessarily a pressure fault. So it's trying to build pressure, but it's not allowing it. It almost sounds like it's a supply issue to me to the high pressure pump.
Like a
could be a pinched line, something's routed incorrectly because
pickup tube.
And I think you mentioned maybe you pulled some line. I talked to so many people, Jake, I'm sorry, but I don't know if you pulled any lines off the T of the recirculation valve or anything. Sometimes those get mixed up. So it could be many things, but it sounds to me when you get those two codes, it's not a rail pressure, but a rail pressure control fault, which is different than just a rail pressure fault. So,
but you did the good. Your injectors were bad, so you didn't do anything wrong.
You're getting there.
Yep.
And sometimes they do this, man. It's not uncommon.
Okay, right here we get minus 50 degrees. This is Alaska, minus 50 degrees. For 5 days at Christmas. I live in the interior. I don't even run the machine for a month. Yeah, I don't blame you. That is like.
Yeah, we get up in the mountains here. We can get below zero, but mostly it's kind of that 0 to 10 degrees. Man, I've never even tried to operate anything. Well, I take that back. When I was in North Dakota, we operated equipment all the time down that negative 20, negative 30. But we just have to leave them running all night long. That was my job, is to make sure that that's the only time I could work on them. They would run all day long, then I could work on them at night and just babysit them. We would fuel them and everything, let them run all night. Then the crews would come in the morning and take off when it got down to those temperatures. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This thing right here will run at negative 55.
Yeah, that thing will just never stop.
It's running right now. You just can't hear it.
Converted over to electric hydrogen conversion.
So Dan does know about the dead sled. He said he was going to mention that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is funny. Rick had to move a broken down 864 on logs. That's perfect.
Yeah. Logs. People use pipes.
Right here, T-Rex decking under my tracks and pulled it with the F250.
There you go.
I've always had the thought of when we're pulling a machine off a trailer of putting soap and water on it. Sliding it.
Depending on the trailer. But yeah, like let's say one of our tilt decks. Yeah. Soap it up and they'll slide off like butter. Yeah.
Look at this. Hi, here's South Korea. Your video is very good. Always thank you. Thank you, man. That's our first from South Korea. That's awesome.
That is definitely the first South Korea. We have a lot of people from Europe, it seems like, join us, but that's the first from.
I wonder how many. I bet there's more Doosan's. Well, of course there's more.
They build them in South Korea. Yeah.
That's
awesome.
I wonder how many Bobcats are up there.
I bet there's a lot.
High Tech Talk Cap 246C was stalling. Topped off 3 gallons of hydraulic fluid, 1.5 quarts of motor oil. Runs great now. Before it would not stay running. Interesting.
3 gallons of hydraulic oil, and I would say 1.5 gallons of motor oil is probably stalling due to low oil pressure, maybe. And that's interesting, though. At least you got it figured out. I'm glad.
I have a suggestion. Omar, he's been here before. Mm-hmm. Can you make a video on how auxiliary controls work, hydraulic and electrical? Thank you.
Yeah, we can. You know, most of my videos are fixing kind of common issues. I'm not good at making videos.
We need to start a series of
just how
training,
how it works,
how things work.
Yeah.
A class. We need to host a class here.
Yeah, because we've got all kinds of, we got
cores.
Spare engines up there. We've got control valves. We got all kinds of stuff. We could do a lot of good videos.
Engines class, electrical class, and hydraulics class. That would be a lot of fun.
We could, yeah, right here. And I apologize for not getting more videos.
We've been very, very, very busy.
God, in the wintertime, it seemed like we were filming something every day. But now we are just
slammed.
It is unbelievable how busy we are, and it's just hard to get those videos up. So maybe when it cools off a little bit, we'll get back into it. We just got to make it a point to get back into it.
Okay, his attachments have the 14 pins.
So your attachments have the 14 pin.
His toolcat and skid have the 7, I'm guessing.
He was part-time last week. David, let me look into that because I'm kind of...
Well, we're even now, Justin.
Yeah. The attachment have the 14 pin. So it runs fine on your cat machine, but you can't run it on the toolcat is what I'm gathering. We have to convert
the attachment 14 down to a 7.
So we could put an RACD on there, and I may even have a spare one, but we'd have to put... So basically, you'd have to run a remote auxiliary control device on the attachment when you want to run it with the toolcat. That system, there may be another way to do it when we talk, but just the easy way to do it, it's like a $1,400 part. Is how we would run it with the toolcat. We'd have to wire it up.
Yeah, he's one of the first subscribers. This guy's an OG right here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I recognize his name back when I used to actually interact with people. I'm trying, man. It's hard to get to all the comments and stuff, but yep, I definitely remember that. I'm subscribed to him too, I think.
Okay. Where's a good place to find a list of those E00 type codes?
Mm,
If you could get your hands on one service manual for like an M series, they have the list of all the codes.
oh, Dan, dude. Yeah, call me, man. I got you.
Yeah, they have the lists of all the codes.
Yeah,
They're pretty much, I guess, for skid steers they're all the same, and for excavators they're all the same.
pretty much for all the engines. Yeah,
The
E
codes
are
are pretty much all the same.
Or they work for all the engines. Yeah.
Gary here, 1999 873 turbo. Why sometimes my attachment grapple works sometimes, then it stops the attachment and the lock lights flash back and forth. Grapple without work till you shut off and reset.
So majority of the time it's a switch out of position. What do we call it? I call it a paddle switch. But what's the actual code?
Out of neutral.
Yeah, auxiliary switch out of neutral or something like that. So you should, you're a 99. You're not going to have codes, but you probably got to, well, depending on what your machine is it ACS? Do you have flashing lights? I'm sorry, no, it doesn't matter what it is. 99, you'll have 2 lights up on your auxiliary button where you engage it, 2 yellow lights. I guess they're green lights.
Yep.
And they should be flashing, and you'd get a flash code. And that flash code will kind of tell you what's going on, but it's usually a switch out of neutral problem. So you're operating the grapple, and that paddle switch is not coming back to neutral, and you keep operating, and it's going to shut your system down because it thinks
something's wrong.
But you should get a little flash code up there if that's what it is. So really the only way to fix that is replace what we call the Cobra head, that whole top handle there. You have to replace that.
Yep.
Majority of the time on those is what it is. I mean, it could be one of the coils or something. We're using pulsal modulation. Your coils are 10-volt coils basically. And, it could be a bad coil, but majority of the time on 873, it's for me, 863, 873, it's always the Cobra head switch out of position.
Justin says, good point about flow and pressure. Good thing our flow gauge has a ball valve and 5,000 PSI gauge.
Dang,
yep, that's perfect.
Flow gauge with the ball. Oh, yeah, you talking money right there.
Yep, this guy's a baller.
Not everybody's got that stuff.
Will the Mimic service analyzer be on the website for sale? He's a baller, so he's going to buy it.
I'm not sure. They probably will be on the website. However, you can buy it now. Like I said, you just shoot me an email and
it's pinned right at the top.
Yeah, we can hook you up. It just right now, I didn't know the interest was going to be as great as it was, and literally everything I ordered in for stock sold within a week, and we're still trying to fulfill those orders. So it is for sale right now, but when it's going to be on the website, I'm not sure. I can't keep up with the orders without them being on the website at the moment. So
we'll catch up in the winter.
Maybe, but as I get better at it and we get a feel for what the orders and the demand is, we can keep the stock. I just didn't know the demand was going to be where it is at the moment.
Hardill's here from Guyana.
Sweet, always good to have him.
He wants to know if you can shoot him an email on the way forward with the analyzer cable.
Yes, I thought I shot that over to you. Oh, I'm sorry, I was checking on shipping. So, Hardill, can you forward me an email with your address? I thought I emailed you back and asked you for your address so that I could check shipping on that. That was my next step, is to make sure that I could ship it and at least get you a cost on what it costs. Because I've never shipped anything to Guyana.
Where's
so
Guyana anyway?
It's over yonder.
Is it in Africa?
Guyana and Africa. It's over there.
Jake said the person that worked on it before messed with the pickup tube and added a check valve. Ooh.
It's okay to have a check valve on the pickup tube.
South America.
Yeah, man, everybody knows that. Yeah, it's okay to have a check valve on the pickup tube. But a lot of times where the pickup tube goes in that 90-degree fitting, sometimes you get trash in that 90-degree fitting.
So you take it out and blow it out backwards. That's what I do.
Yeah, make sure it's not there. Make sure the lines, when they come under the engine, if it's full of dirt and rock, sometimes it'll squeeze off the line and prevent pressure or prevent flow to the filter. Did you check your primer ball? Is the primer ball getting sucked flat? Can you squeeze the primer ball and build RPM as it's running? Keep pumping that primer ball.
Yep.
And just a few things like that to try out.
Matt leaves the machines running up in Alaska too. Yep.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Is Alaska colder than North Dakota?
Yeah, he was getting -50. The coldest I was ever in was about -35.
I guess it's closer to the Arctic Circle,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Up in Minot is where I was. And we actually Tioga. We were north of Minot. And yeah, even when the machines did shut down, I'd go up there and it took me, on average, it took me about 2 or 3 hours to get them started. Our big scrapers had dual engines, push-pull scrapers. And, we'd have to put tarps over them. I'd lift the heaters up on my cranes. We put them in the engine bay.
Oh my gosh.
And we'd have to heat the engines up. We get one engine started. Then we'd have to move the cranes and the heaters, get the rear engine started.
That's crazy.
And, it was a lot of work. So it's a lot more efficient and
just to let it idle.
Just to let it run all night. Yeah.
Dan says Dawn Soap worked great last week off an excavator flatbed tilt truck. Yes, sir. Slid right off with these. I always wondered.
Yeah, they do good on the flatbeds, but like if you got ramps with the angle iron or whatever, it doesn't.
They get stuck. It's WD-40 got my locked A300 off the flatbed like butter. Nice. 70s memory says, hope the cat problem will help someone out. Must have had some kind of low oil pressure or low oil sensor. Perkins diesel.
Perkins, that was the good ones.
It was
Percapillars.
1.5 quarts low.
1.5 quarts. Okay, did I read that wrong?
Yes, you said gallons. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. So
it's okay. How long can I run on my T595 if one drive motor has dirt in it and not holding much oil? I've already ran like that 100 hours. Like the
so his 5.9. So
you talking about the?
Did you just post this on Facebook or something? I'm trying to think. It seems like I saw someone that had that same issue. They were asking that question, but so on the 595, you probably got the newer style drive motor with the outer brake hub on it. So that outer chamber is nothing but the brake pack. So that oil in there is just lubricating the brake disc, and it's just stacked disc like a clutch pack. You can try to clean it out and flush it and just keep running until it fails, I guess. But if you lose the seal, between that brake chamber and, the hydraulic side, then the hydraulic oil will actually fill that brake chamber and cause issues. So, yeah, I mean, if it's holding oil, if you've got the style motor, I think you do. I mean, you can try, because like I said, there's nothing in that section but the actual brake pack itself.
It doesn't hold much oil.
No, it's what? How many ounces? That's 7.
That's right. That's what you mean.
Yeah. So, yeah,
you can. It leaked or something.
Let's see. What do you say? Read it again.
It just says it's not holding much oil. So I'm wondering if he means like it's leaking out.
Yeah, I mean, if it's leaking, then yeah, we're going to have to rebuild it. But it has dirt in it and not holding much oil. Yeah, I mean, try to flush it and see what happens. But yeah, I mean, ideally you should, rebuild the drive motor, but that dirt from that outer brake pack hub should not be able to get back to the hydraulic system.
Theoretically.
Jake
says it's not getting stuck flat, but definitely soft when it dies. Thanks for the help. I really appreciate it. I'll check out the fuel lines next.
Yeah, Jake, just like I said, give us a call, man. We'll run over there and check it out. See if we can't help you out. I don't want that thing to, it happens to us too. Sometimes you get sucked into a rabbit hole and you keep chasing something.
We had a 595 with fuel issues. Remember that one? With the
one bad injector that.
No.
Oh, that was a different.
I'm thinking of the one with the bypass that was put on the wrong way.
Oh, someone put the bypass on backwards. Yeah, and that's the thing, when you're going behind somebody,
you don't know what they did.
Yeah,
we had somebody put on a cold weather bypass on the wrong way. They took it off and
they thought that was the issue and put it on backwards.
Yeah, and so I was there for like an hour running it and trying to blow the hose out, and stuff kept coming out of the hose, but it was the bypass the whole time. So.
Yep.
How often do you guys have to fix those drive motor covers due to bad sprockets on M-Series machines? It looks like it's going to be a common issue here.
The drive motor covers due to bad sprockets on M-Series.
Never.
What happens to the sprocket that causes the cover to go bad?
I don't know.
Bad sprockets on the M-Series.
The protector plate? Oh, the covers that go behind it.
Because the sprocket, the track is lower on the sprocket.
Yeah, I've seen.
It's riding lower. And
I've seen them, but
yeah.
Usually I don't replace them. Just put them back.
Yeah, put them back if it's real bad. I've welded plates over the top of them. So here it's not terrible. But yeah, I would think like somewhere that's real sandy might have a lot of issues with that. But yeah, I've had some that there wasn't much of the cover left, and we just welded plates back over the top of them.
Yep.
If that's the question.
He welded a plate too. That's what he said.
Yeah, yeah.
AC blower not working. What's the first thing to check? Fuse is good. The resistors. That's what I usually check.
Yeah, when you
there's like a.
So the easiest thing, he's on the A300, right? So yeah, just pull your
You talking about the A300? Where is he?
I'd imagine. So yeah, basically you just have to get down to your blower motor. You have to pull the cover off. You have to lift the cab, go in from underneath, pull the cover off, get to your blower motor, and you'll see the 4-wire plug there, the resistor. And just see if you've got 12 volts down there at that plug. And if you do, it's usually, on those older machines, it's usually just a bad blower motor itself. But you have to, the easiest thing to do is just make sure you got 12 volts at the blower motor. And then take a power probe or something.
See if it works.
And power the blower motor and see if it works. But more than likely, on those older machines, it always seems to be the blower motor, because I'm thinking that's a preamp. That's probably a G or a K series maybe machine. And what happened is, behind the window, behind the back glass, there's the intake air filter, and those always rotted out, and you get water right down into there, right into the blower motor, and they would always seize up. So yeah, just checking voltage at the blower motor is really what's going to be the easiest way to check that.
I've had to replace more of the resistor packs than the motors
on
in my
the excavators, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, the excavators had issues with those.
Yeah.
You went out with me and did one, and
yep,
back when we were at the dealer at the National Guard.
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
I remember that. I was nervous. Hey guys, thanks for streaming. Can you talk about what you use for wiring accessories? Do you use marine wire and butt connectors to connect to switches, or do you believe in solder or something else?
Solder or something else. Okay. I've got two ways of doing this. All right. So
I've been converted to this way.
Yeah. So for wiring accessories, I mean, we could go into accessories all day long. Generally, when we're repairing wires and wiring harnesses, we have switched over to non-insulated butt connectors and non-insulated connectors altogether with heat shrink. So much better, so much streamlined. It fits a lot better. It looks more professional. It looks better. So non-insulated connectors for everything with heat shrink. After we crimp it, we put the heat shrink back over it, and it just looks a lot more professional.
It doesn't look like if you have to fix a whole harness, it doesn't look like a big fat glob of.
So if let's say you're hooking a wire to something, you don't ever want to, let's say it's a spade connector or whatever, you don't ever want to really solder the wire at the spade connector, because you can get vibration and the wire can break there at the spade connector. However, in the middle of a harness, depending on the size, like if I can't be putting a bunch of butt connectors in there, we will actually solder a new wire in there, tape up that harness real good, and now that wire is soldered together in the harness, and it's not vibrating or bending or anything like something at the termination point would be. So I'll solder in the middle of a harness all day long. I don't really like to solder at a termination terminal, if that makes sense. So non-insulated connectors and Absolutely no electrical tape. We don't use electrical tape on anything anymore because everything's
Tessa tape.
yeah, Tessa harness tape is what we use. There's a few good harness tapes that you can get, but Tessa, TESA, is by far the best harness tape, in my opinion, that you can get. And yeah, we don't use any electrical tape on anything because
No.
if you fix the problem or the connector or the whatever the issue was correctly with heat shrink and whatever the case may be, then all you need is harness tape to tape it up. So hopefully that answers a couple of your questions. Maybe, like I said, we could go into all the battery cable connectors and hydraulic crimpers and everything we use, but for most of our repairs, it's all just non-insulated butt connectors.
Matt says he thinks the cold took out the computer. It had 700 hours since 2011. It wasn't run in the winter. Bought it last year with 600 hours.
It's possible.
Anything plastic cracks and breaks in the cold here, like extension cords.
Extension cords, yeah, that's crazy because they are potted. I mean, it's like a polyurethane material that they fill those controllers with. So absolutely, I could see that cracking, probably get moisture in there, when it does warm up, that all that.
Then you get another freeze and it just breaks in half.
Like here, when the snow melts, it's a long lingering process. So it just melts and drips in there. It's like raining for weeks on end, and so yeah, I could easily see that happening.
Just changed my fuel filter, much bigger than the stock one. T650 didn't have the larger clamps with it. Well, you better go back there and yell at them.
They should have offered it to you.
Yeah.
So when we changed that filter, which I'm glad we did, because when we changed that filter, we've had a huge decrease in the number of injector issues and fuel system issues than we had in the past with the smaller one. The smaller one just didn't have enough water displacement inside of it. The bigger one, we basically got the same filter element, but we have a lot more water capacity to help dissipate that water to keep it from going to the injectors. So it's a really good thing that we went to that larger filter. And when we first went out to it, the clamps were included for about the first year and a half. We included the clamps. But by that time, everyone should have been cycled through them. So they quit including the clamps. Now the clamps are separate. But one way to get around that is some people just use one clamp. You take your two clamps, which I know you hate this, but you take your two small ones, hook them together.
Yeah.
Actually,
I really hate that.
I had to do this a while back. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I know. I knew that'd be disappointing. But anyways, I had to take two of the worm gear clamps, hook them together to make one to hold the filter in place until I could get back out there with the proper clamps, right?
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
I'm sure you're going to go
Sorry,
all the way about.
But that's the thing about working in the field is sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. Any update on the T76 oil filter relocation kit?
No. Where's Justin at? He's supposed to help me with that. I forgot to call him. Let me get back on that. Holy cow, I got sidetracked. I haven't been asked about that in a few weeks.
I forgot about that thing too.
Let me get back out to our supplier and see if those are available yet. If not, I'm calling Justin.
Have you used the solder connector?
Yeah, I hate those.
Just got back online. My question was the first one about the 773. I pulled the pin out of the bucket and the one I rebuilt, and it works. When I put the pin back in, it acts airlocked. I wonder if something was put back together.
Something's got to be wrong or hooked up. I mean, the lines didn't get hooked up backwards, did they? I mean, it shouldn't, because the lines can only, I mean, they're to link. They couldn't have got messed up. I think something happened in that cylinder, man. I don't know what it could have been.
Piston is backwards or something.
Yeah, it's a piston upside down or backwards or something. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
That's really weird. I would suspect there's something wrong with the cylinder that you rebuilt, but it's not. I don't think it's air, because like I said,
the air would be gone.
They bleed themselves. I mean, we've built hundreds and hundreds of cylinders. I've never seen anything like that.
They're pretty much gone by the first time you cycle through it. Yeah. All the air.
Something's not right with that cylinder.
He's gonna check it. Okay.
Check what?
That cylinder.
Okay.
P.S. I watched one of your older videos about the in-field hose repair couplers and ended up ordering some to keep in my field toolbox. Thanks for another great best practice. Hydraulic hose couplers.
What was that about?
Your older videos in the field hose repair couplers?
Oh yeah. That was like one of my first ones.
I don't even know.
So yeah, what it is, it's a reusable hose connector that you can use on hydraulic hoses. So if we have a blowout, so I keep them on my truck, like number 4, 6, and 8 hose. I keep those on there, and I keep a male and a female JIC. So if we have a hose blown in the middle in the field, we can just cut it in half, clean the end up, and you screw the connector onto the hose, and then you screw the other fitting into that connector.
Does
into
that work
the collar.
Drive hoses?
Not. I don't think they work well over number 8 hose.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, 4, 6, and 8 I keep on my truck. I think they make them bigger, but they're really expensive. I keep a lot of number 6s on there because it seems like number 6 is the ones that are the most common to break. But it'll get us out of a bind. I think the one that he's talking about I did was on a tool cap, blew a steering line out in the middle of a mud hole, and I had to move it off the job site because they were coming in with trucks. So instead of pulling that hose all the way out of the system and trying to pull it all the way back in, it would have took me most of the day. 20 minutes, I had that hose cut, coupled back together, and at least got them back to work. I think that went to your shop and got a new hose put in it after that.
Ooh.
And I asked for my fittings back, and I didn't get them back because they are reusable. Those things are expensive.
Well, I wasn't there, so sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
The oil that comes out of it looks like it has bubbles.
Bubbles. It's probably got bubbles because it sounds like they're fighting each other, man. I'd love to see a video of that.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we can do one of those online videos or something. I'd love to see what's going on with that.
FaceTime.
Yeah, or I'd hopefully you'll join us next week or give us a call or text or email or something. Let me know what you find when you pull that cylinder apart. But really pay close attention to those lines, man. Make sure that a line didn't get
Flipped
hooked
around
up backwards because it sounds like they're fighting each other. So one's trying to go in, one's trying to go out as you're trying to do it. That's what it sounds like to me, and it will cause oil to do that. So,
does the Doosan engines need the injection pump timed since it runs on the electric sensor? Technically, there's a thing to time it, but it's common rail, so not really.
So I did a video on that to kind of explain why we time it and why you don't necessarily have to time it. On the Doosan engine, we've got a twin pump system. The high pressure pump has twin pistons with an internal camshaft. And when one piston's making pressure, the other piston is on the intake stroke. And then when the cam goes down, now the bottom one would be on the pressure side and the top one would be on the intake. So you can think of this as a frequency. Let me go this way. As a frequency, high pressure, your high pressure, then your intake, high pressure, intake. But since you have two of them, they're counteracting each other. So ideally, your injectors want to fire at the highest possible pressure in the common rail. That's how the engine runs at peak performance and peak efficiency. If you didn't time it, you wouldn't even know the difference. However, the way it compensates and has to raise the fuel pressure a little bit, it's microscopic adjustments that's done by the ECU that would kind of make up for it if you didn't have it timed. But best efficiency, best process, best practice would be to time it. But you do not have to time it. It'll run just fine, and you won't even know the difference.
Do that thing with the graphs again. You look like a scientist when you're doing that.
So it's a frequency. It's
there
like a wave, like alternating current. You got a high pressure and a low, and they're both alternating. And you want them at the peaks is where you want the injectors to fire.
You guys writing that down?
So
the waves.
I actually did it on a whiteboard, a chart. It made more sense. Yeah. Okay.
Or a scientist.
Now I think you're making fun of me.
I'm going to work on it this weekend. I'll double check the lines, but they were hanging in place. Maybe the ones going into the junction box in the center between the two cylinders. Love the channel.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Well, let me know what you find for sure.
Dan wrote that down.
He's taking notes.
Good.
Dan
like
knows
this.
that. Dan knows when we're trying to baffle him with bullshit. We dazzle him with brilliance and baffle him with bullshit, right, Dan?
Yep.
So, but no, that's the honest to God's truth, and that's what in the Bobcat class, when they were doing the engine training, that's when they were showing that video, because they didn't know how to explain it or why it had to be timed. So they were showing my video in the Bobcat training courses to tell why we had, because everyone's like, well, it's just common rail. It just builds pressure and maintains pressure. Why do we have to time it? And well, that's why, because it's, if you think of it as a frequency, and we wanted to fire at peak frequency.
Well, if they don't teach that in the class, if they teach it in the class from you, where did you learn it?
I taught the class. No, I didn't teach the class, but
You went to the super class.
no, I think I learned that at Caterpillar school.
Oh,
And I had to cross it over to the Bobcat school. I don't remember, man, but somewhere I had to do that. But anyways, awesome. It looks like we're all caught up on our questions. Thanks everyone for being here. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of good questions today. And again, I mean, it looks like we're already getting emails on the software and stuff. So I will get those to you. If I don't get back to you tonight, I will get back to those in the morning, because I'm ready to go home. And
best classes I ever took came from dealer techs on their off time.
That's true. That is true. That's where we learn a lot. And Rick, thanks again for being here. I appreciate it. I really appreciate everyone that keeps coming back every week. I don't know. Like I look back at these, I feel like sometimes we're boring, but then I look back at them, I'm like, dang, I'm kind of interested in what I say. And then I'm like, why didn't I say that? You know what I mean? Because we're on the spot here trying to do it as quick as we can, answer these questions, keep things rolling. But sometimes I just don't think of it logically, or we go too fast.
Well, at least you think of it. I don't even know how to answer any of these dang questions.
But sometimes I even find them interesting. And so awesome, man. Well, thanks again, guys. Till next week. See ya.
Deuces.